some of the artifacts around the Data 443 GDPR framework. What the framework really is a end-to-end GDPR starter pack. You know, the one thing we really wanted to do with this plugin, and thank you to the folks at CodeLight for doing such a great job, not just in designing the product, but also getting a really good user feedback mechanism working within the infrastructure. We feel that the GDPR legislation itself tends to drive a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt with a lot of people. And in reality, it's actually fairly straightforward to comply with if your data is organized and if you do a few simple things. The biggest part about GDPR, of course, is the concept of a right to be forgotten or the right to be modified or managed more appropriately. And it really is about putting the power back into the hands of the user from their privacy perspective. You know, how their information is being used, where it's being used, where it's being shared, and how it's being processed. So people now have the right to this. And it's not just something we're doing within the European Union. We're seeing many Asia Pacific countries doing the same thing. Of course, Canada has had a very strong data protection policy for quite some time. And also now the United States have started in several areas. A couple states, most notably California, has drafted their legislation as well. Actually, I think it's actually in effect as of now. And federally, the US government is thinking about doing the same. So very simply, privacy is not going away, of course, and in reality, it is good, sound business practice, and especially, even more importantly, it's good, sound data management practice. So when you focus on privacy first, and you engineer your business processes and your solutions towards having that front and center for your customers, things get a lot easier. Certainly, of course, what we've seen is, you know, that's not always the case, and there's usually some, you know, you have to do some engineering, some business process change in order to facilitate the concept of data privacy. So the GDPR framework itself is WordPress centric, as you can expect. The framework itself also is something we can implement very quickly and simply. And what we'll show you is we've got you know, tens of thousands of folks who've downloaded and installed the framework itself, and have seen, you know, immediate and pretty quick value from it. So what we're going to do today is walk through a full installation end to end and show you in about 35 seconds, you're going to have a fully compliant data subject access request portal, a privacy policy set and enabled, and giving the ability for your end users, whoever they might happen to be, to request data. From there, I'm going to show you some advanced feature functionality that Data 443 is planning for the plugin itself, and we're looking to enable that in the coming months or so from an enterprise perspective. Right now, what you're seeing is this framework itself is really centered around the WordPress genre itself. So you're going to be able to manage all data sets within WordPress today. And virtually anything that's stored within WordPress, so whether it's your users' information, their associations to your organization, any comments they've posted on, any pages they've commented on, and also if you're using WordPress as a order management entry system. The vast majority of WordPress sites, of course, are e-commerce sites. So capabilities like WooCommerce is probably the biggest user of WordPress itself. We're able to retrieve order information, previous communications, any type of CRM information you might have stored in WordPress, and also give that to the end user as part of a data subject access request. I'll try and advance my slides here. So really, at the end of the day, what is the spirit of the legislation for the GDPR, right? And firstly, the main point is, you know, we have appropriate technical and organizational measures that are taken against unauthorized or unlawful processing of data. And you're protecting against accidental loss or destruction or damage to personal data. So really saying that in a simplistic way, you're being a good data steward, you're doing best efforts and best efforts isn't just, trying, it's actually doing, to manage your customers' personal information, allowing them to manage it themselves as well, and then managing them, allowing them to, remove it as needed as well. The other big part with GDPR is, how do we classify information from within the personalized information stores such as WordPress. So really good delineation between GDPR and something that you have to think about as a business owner is this information about Jane in Canada. Is it personally identifiable? Is her email address personally identifiable? In most cases, yes. Is her IP address on its own PII? Generally, no. Is the fact that she clicked like on a post personally identifiable? Depends on which country you're in. So there's a lot of scenarios you have to think about which type of information should be classified by which mechanism. So, personally identifiable information generally relies on anything that is correlatable to that person itself. In Germany, for example, IP address and user ID, that combination is definitely personally identifiable and should be treated as confidentially as any other piece of PII. So some would think that, the fact you click like on a post on a website is not as sensitive as your most latest medical condition, but underneath the legislation, they're both treated the same. So you have to be really careful about how you're managing the customer's data. Some organizations have started to remove data from their data repositories. They're starting to delete old entries in their CRM, for example, that aren't applicable. Others are starting to aggressively scrub their infrastructure and removing entries that don't have to be there anymore. So you really have to have a business use for that information is the other big thing that GDPR talks about. And it really is about making sure that we have a strong management paradigm around what is PII, what is not PII, and what the organization actually has a use for. And we're giving some examples here right now about what could be considered PII. Anyone from Europe, of course, has a really good sensitivity to this, so I'm sure this is all repetitive for you, but other folks who are just getting into this area could probably use a reminder and a different opinion on some of these things. If ever in doubt, I would recommend you consider it PII and treat that data just as sensitive as anything else is. Okay? And the other thing you have to consider here too is that even with the information set that you have, some might be considered PII, but you might also have a reasonable business need to control, process, and store that information. So the concept of someone liking a post is probably not something you need to store because you probably don't have a future business need for that information. But certainly the fact that they ordered a service from you, paid for it, and used it for 2 years might mean you have to store that information for audit purposes if you're a financial services institution for 7 years, for example. So there's lots of different needs and requirements about, based on where you're located, where your customer is located, which is now the new paradigm to consider, and then of course your true business need for that information. Okay, lots of articles to cover from the GDPR. I won't spend time on these. The biggest ones, of course, have been the right of rectification and erasure, and then the fact that you're able to process and manage the information yourself. You can go to our website later on to read about some of these things. We have the full list, and we're happy to discuss them individually in the future with you. The biggest thing we find with GDPR in all of our other work as well is that you need to have several capabilities to facilitate the requirements. And this is one reason why Data 443 purchased the GDPR Framework plugin, primarily because, it facilitates a lot of these requirements. You have to have a discovery capability. You have to have a cataloging capability. You have to have some sort of a monitoring reporting capability built into the solution so that you can respond to customer requests and manage them going forward. Security and audit governance is a really important part of the legislation. You need to have a capability to have some sort of remediation orchestration engine. And this might be as simple as just responding to a request. It really is that simple to start from. It doesn't have to be a very big, complex workflow engine and everything else. In a lot of cases, some people just need to have a action response system. The biggest part with anything GDPR related, we have to be really clear here with you, is that you must be very accurate and valid and complete in your responses as best as humanly possible. It's no longer acceptable just to say, I tried. You really have to be across the board, very detailed and as complete as possible within your responses. And we'll talk about that more in a minute. So let's hop into the demo. So what you're going to see right now is the GDPR framework not installed anywhere. So what you're seeing here is a generic website. I just turned on a brand new installation of WordPress. It has exactly one post on it, and that's it, the brand new WordPress system. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the full end-to-end installation of the GDPR framework from the WordPress perspective. So number one, very simple thing for you to do is, you're going to search for your plugin. You can download it from our website, or, the recommended way is primarily to do it through the WordPress app engine itself. Let me do a search, pardon me. So you search for the plugin itself. Click OK, and you'll see right here that we've got a couple of ours here. One thing to note is that we have the GDPR framework itself, which is the base plugin. That one is currently free for all to use. And then we've also got a couple more plugins that are related to the framework plugin. The framework plugin itself is designed to provide base functionality, give you coverage, I think 8 to 10 platforms within WordPress and capabilities. And then we have additional add-ons that we'll be able to search throughout. So the idea is you can put the framework in, and then you can pick up additional add-ins as required by your needs from your business. So very simple install, just like everything in WordPress. I click on install, I click on activate, and as of that moment, I now have a privacy and compliance GDPR framework solution in place. Literally, it's that simple, right? So now, just really simple, I'm going to configure this thing. So if I go over to tools and privacy, you'll see that the privacy framework system comes up. It's already enabled, actually. We've got privacy tools and privacy policy pages defined. I could select a terms and conditions page. These are things that you must have as part of the GDPR framework. I highly recommend you spend some time on that. And then we've got some basic configuration options for the plugin. Number one is, if you have someone come in to request a data subject access request, this is someone coming in to say, tell me what you have about me, we have a couple options about how we orchestrate and deliver that. Number one, some customers, some website owners will say, sure, just send it to them directly. Others will say, send the data, but let me know when someone's requested a DSAR. And in other cases, of course, people will say, get the data ready, but I want to approve the information. Probably the third option is the most used capability. We find a lot of administrators want to clean up the response, change the messaging a little bit, add some text, remove some text is also something that happens quite often, and really just clean up the response for customers. Again, these are your customers. They do deserve a proper response, and legally you're mandated to do it as well. The other thing we happen on the delete side, this is a real big challenge for a lot of organizations. If someone comes in to do a DSAR with you and they say, okay, I know you have me in 15 comments and 2 purchases in the past 3 years. I want all my information removed from your site, and you have 30 days to do it. This is where you make a choice about how you actually enable that request. There's a lot to do in that request. In some cases, it might be just removing that account and removing that one comment that they made on a posting. If you're running an e-commerce site and they've done 50 orders over the past 3 years, it's a bigger problem, right? So what we've done in this case is manage the deletion request a little more granular for you. So if you're a very small site, you're probably going to say automatically delete the email, delete the data about them, and just send them a response saying they've been deleted. Other cases, if it's a small site, you might want to be notified as well. In some cases, the legislation allows you to keep the information but anonymize the personally identifiable portions of it. So it could be the fact that you have IP address, username, and cookie cycle, for example, stored in the same record. You might choose to anonymize the username. And then that way you still can do your analytics on the responses. For example, you have some sort of analytics engine running, but you don't have their specific PII in place where you can't tie it back to the individual. When you're thinking around data mapping and specifically how it's correlated to other data sets, the main thing you want to consider is this piece of information combinative with another piece of information identify a person? And this is really something specifically you can go through with your data sets. It really is kind of a personal thing. It's about your data. But you need to think about how that information correlates to other types of information and whether that combinatively makes it personal. And it's a really big difference. And I think it changes the way you think about how you act and store data. In the old days, frankly, everyone just stored everything because it was easier. Now you cannot do that, and you must be a little more aggressive about how you do these sort of things. All right, so we deleted anonymized data. We have a bunch of different ways of doing that, and we could save that transaction. We're going to keep the defaults here, okay? The other thing we can do on the consent side is ask them for different types of consent in the WordPress engine itself to automatically collect other information. So for example, we can say we're going to, by using this website, you've accepted our privacy policy, and here's a hyperlink to it. If you want to redraw your acceptance or delete any other data, click my data here, click to delete my data here, and you'll be redirected to another page. We find some people will add other different types of consent. We might have something, if you are a resident of Canada, PIPA and et cetera, are subject to this law as well. You'll see some major content sites, news sites, anything that's doing a lot of publishing with a worldwide audience will have several different types of consent set based on their geography. So this is something you should consider depending on who your audience is. And if you're, a manufacturer and you're selling widgets online worldwide, you're probably going to have a couple different types of consent based on those laws. Okay. Onto the data subjects area. This is where your administrator panel is. You can do some searches based on, specific users individually. So for example, you might have a DSAR request come in from someone walking in the front door at your store. Okay, if you're selling widgets online and in a retail operation, someone asks for a DSAR at your store in person, which they're allowed to do. How do you find their information, right? So in some cases, you might just jump into this console and do a quick search for their piece of PII, right? In this case, we're looking for their email address. So in this case, joeuser@home.com doesn't exist. He has nothing here. We have someone else come in and look for, say, here's my email address. I want to know what you have about me. Oh, we've got a couple hits on that piece of data. I'm going to look to see what information we have on that user. And you'll see here, this is the output primarily of what a good DSAR request looks like. This is the option of saying, I'm looking for this piece of explicit PII information. In this case, I used email address as my anchor to search with. And then I have the rest of the information that's telling me exactly when they last interacted, where they interacted from, browser and all that good stuff, but also specifically what they did within the WordPress infrastructure, okay? In this case, they commented on a post and they commented on another post. So we've got basically 3 comments that they have entered as part of our WordPress system. If we had WooCommerce in place and they ordered 3 widgets from us over the past 2 years, those records would also show up in this interface. Okay, so in the context of a user being in your store, you're able to, as you can see, within a second or two, quickly pull up any information you have on them in your WordPress infrastructure. Okay, and if you're using WordPress for your CRM and your e-commerce system and your corporate blog and other types of information sets, you're seeing that you're going to have a lot of information to report on with the users there. Okay. At this point, you can also do the anonymization of the information, and you can also delete the information. So you have a lot of control right from this this interface, and it's something that you can manage directly without having to pull up another system or anything else. You have the ability to immediately pull up this capability with the interface. Okay. What we also have for you is a very nice little privacy policy generator. And this is important because what we're finding is that a lot of organizations don't have either a good privacy policy or a privacy policy that is more adapt to today's requirements. So the main point here is that, this is just a template, and we always recommend that you join with your lawyers and understand what they're looking for and what the capabilities are that you must have. But what we're seeing here is that you must have a capability to manage your privacy policy and do a little bit better job on specifically what it says. So in this case, what you're seeing is that we have the basic things in place to manage the basic items of a privacy policy. Okay. So the main point here is you're going to put in some of your basic things, your company name, your location, and you're going to put in a few extra things as well. So number 1, if you are subject to the GDPR as an organization, you're resident in the EU in this case, you're going to have to find a data processing location that is more related to your organization. Now, your lawyer might have a different opinion, and certainly they will be the right party to understand and respect. But what we found is that the DPO, the Data Protection Authority, that is most related to your organization is the one that is nearest or domiciled with your headquarters. So if you have 4 offices throughout the EU, Germany, UK, Italy, and Spain, but your headquarters is in Germany, then the German Data Protection Authority is the one you would be indicating as a processing agent here. So you're going to be picking your most related one. You'll be entering that information into the privacy policy settings here, okay? And then you should probably also have a data protection officer assigned. And again, this is really dependent upon your organization, the legislation, your domicile, your risk, all these sort of things. But if you do have a DPO assigned, we recommend obviously you put that information in this privacy policy form. Once you have this information set, and you can change it all you want, of course, you click on submit, and then basically it generates an instant privacy policy for you that you're able to edit, as you see fit. You'll see these areas for to-dos or extra work that you might want to add into and tailor the messaging. And then, of course, you're just going to copy and paste that into your privacy policy page. Okay. So you're seeing here, we generate the privacy policy, and then you can literally just open the privacy policy page itself and copy and paste the information into it. So in a few seconds, you've got a pretty good privacy policy that covers the bases. It's got your data protection authority assigned. It's got your DPO defined. It's got some of your basic policies around data handling and how you're going to request them. And of course, you've got links to not just the supervisory authority, but also how to manage your own information as an end user. Okay, so another major GDPR requirement there covered off in a few clicks. We now have a privacy policy defined. And then, of course, you've got our general support and other types of information you can use. So you saw there in a few minutes, and maybe it wasn't 38 seconds, but definitely it was just a few minutes, you're able to quickly set up all this information and have it defined within your WordPress site in a few clicks. What you'll see also, and I'll refresh the page here, at the bottom of the page now, we have a hyperlink to the privacy policy, which is our lovely policy we just finished doing. And then what you also have, of course, is the hyperlink to the privacy tools area. And this is where we start doing the data subject access requests. Okay, so now what we're going to do is I'm going to log out of WordPress, and I'm going to go back to the main website. This is our main website. We're not logged in anywhere. I'm going to click on privacy tools, and then in this case, it's going to say, would you please identify yourself, please, right? We're not logged in. So the main point here is I'm going to enter in my email address, and I'm going to say, this is my data subject access request. Don't forget, you can change what this looks and feels. You can have your logo in here. You should have some links to your policy. You probably also should have your phone number and a couple other things in there. But in reality, I'm going to say, hey, this is my email address. I want to know what you have as an organization stored in your WordPress system. Okay. So in a few seconds, we should have the email come in. There it is. And what you're seeing here in this case is a data subject access request URL that's based on the request I just made, from this website, right? And now as an end user, I'm going to say, okay, cool. I'm going to click on this and see what I have. So what we are displayed here now, so don't forget, we just did a DSAR here. Just did a full data subject access request, and we've orchestrated, we've responded to the user, and now the user is self-servicing their DSAR here. And what we're saying is, here's your information. You can download it. Some folks will require JSON for other types of tools. That's another discussion we could talk about later. But in reality, I'm going to look at the table and see, okay, here's all the information that this organization has on me. Remember, in this case, we said that users are free to request deletion of their information on their own without administrator approval. So in this case, we're going to say the end user is going to say, I don't want to deal with you anymore. I don't want you to have any of my privacy information anymore. I'm just going to click on delete, and I want it to be removed. So you'll see that this will be done very shortly. It's now stripping up records out of WordPress and removing the information. If you had set it as the administrator to obfuscate or anonymize the information, or if you had set the system to notify the administrator first, all of those things would have been done as part of that transaction. Okay. So there's a lot of flexibility there about how you actually manage the administrative interface and how it reacts to requests. So in that case, you've seen that the end user has directly logged in, made a request, and then also deleted their own email, their own PII information from the WordPress system. You can also make specific types of requests as well. I think in this case, I can do a user email request search here. And this would again do a full search from within the infrastructure, pull up any results, which I'm not sure there is. Oh, there is, there we go. And I can download their personal information as well. This is something that I can also send off to the end users. This is WordPress native functionality, by the way, as well. Okay. So let me skip back into the plugin here, and let me see what else I can show you here. One piece that is interesting, I think, is the setup wizard. This is something that I would recommend if you haven't done this before to run it by hand and see how you fare with this engine on its own. We invested quite a bit of time in the wizard itself. The wizard is designed, much like other wizards, to walk you through the process quickly and walk through the definition of a lot of the artifacts of the solution. So let's click on Get Started. There is boilerplate here. Basically, we're not responsible for your GDPR compliance. You are. And this is something that will get you along the way, but won't do everything for you. You just want to be clear about that. So in this case, remember, like we said, we're specifying a privacy tools page. We're going to select one in this case, or in this case, I actually want to create a new one because I'm doing a new installation. And in this case, I want the customers to only have the ability to request it, and I'm going to be told about the request, admin@website.com. Okay, so I want to know when people are requesting their data exports, because I'm going to be the one tailoring their information. In this case, again, like I said before, we're able to anonymize and delete, or just notify when there's a deletion request as well. Okay. I'm going to save that. I should complete my email addresses. And then I'm going to also create a new privacy policy page. We've already generated one, and I have a specific terms and conditions page, and I'm going to call it that page. There. We've selected an existing privacy policy. Everything's ready to go. And I also wanted to manage some of the forms and contact newsletter stuff that we have within the infrastructure. Keep in mind, we support the majority of the large form manufacturers for WordPress. There are literally thousands, and some of them do very strange things in the database for storage. So if you're building from scratch, think about our supported forms list. This is something that you probably want to think of upfront before you start having 10,000 records in your database. But in reality, as long as they store it in a reasonable fashion in WordPress, we can integrate to it. So just something to consider on the form side. And in this case, I'm going to go with my basic theme that we already have, and I'm going to have the solution add links to the footer automatically. If you have a highly customized theme, or you've done some really strange things with a PSD or something for your theme, you would uncheck this, and then you would add the privacy policy and the remediation request for DSAR links on their own to your footer. Totally up to you. So in this case, we're done. We've run a full run through of the privacy policy generation. We've set them, and again, all of the links are automatically placed on the site. And in this case, you'll see that they're able to be identified via the privacy policy and or doing a request on your own. We recommend you spend a little bit of time tailoring this, these pages, this text. We have some requests in the support portal today about multilingual characters and editing some of this privacy policy information. So you're seeing here that you can edit this all you want. You can translate it. We do have a few translations live on the site today. But I would always recommend that you look through additional translations that we've done and understand that there are some other capabilities that we can add there. So, number one, we're able to do, I think there's 4 or 5 translations now already done for the plugin. You can look through it in the plugin support itself. But then also we have some basic functionalities that we want you to address or you to understand. Okay. Just had a question come in. Once you add a number of plugins in the core, WordPress adds all the GDPR info about specific plugins. Is it relatively simple to understand where in the privacy policy to add that information does it generate place that information for you? So it's a very good question. You'd have to either regenerate the privacy policy or put the links to the specific WordPress plugins throughout your privacy policy. Don't forget, you're enabling the ability for the end user to request their privacy information from you. So if you've added, I don't know, 6 new WordPress plugins and they may collect PII-based information, it really is on you and us, basically, not the end user, right, to understand where that information is stored and how it can be retrieved. So I don't know if we really need to tell the end user that, you know, we installed a plugin that does, I don't know, reverse IP lookups, for example. I don't know if that's really important for them to understand, but if you are running a plugin that does reverse IP lookups and that's correlatable to a piece of personally identifiable information, that is up to you to manage that correlation and make sure that the deletion requests go through. Okay, so I hope I answered that question. It's a little more convoluted than I wanted to, but again, it is really about how do we manage that data properly, right? And the privacy policy generator itself is going to generate a generic policy and doesn't specifically point to plugins, data stores, or even what kind of data we're storing, right? That is up to you to add from your business perspective. Okay. What we also have, of course, in the plugin side is, you know, a changelog and an FAQ. One thing you'll see with this most recent version is we have done a fair amount of work in bug fixes and making sure that we have designed the fact that all information is able to be retrieved from different browsers now. And we've also added a few more country settings as well, including where we're able to manage the request location or the vendor location. So quite a few fixes in the plugin. We've got several thousand downloads of the latest one. We've got advanced backlog for the plugin now, a very fancy way of saying we have lots more work that's being done on the plugin. And we've also got the full support site in place as well. So if you do have any questions, what we can do is you can ask for support either right from the plugin, right? Or what we usually recommend is we recommend you go to our support site in general. I'll show that to you in a second here, sorry. You can either link to support from here or just go to data443.com and click on the support link here. Either way, you will see that we've got the GDPR framework question there, support link is there, and then we're able to enter a response into the system. And this does reach directly our team, CodeLight, who's still helping out with the plugin, and our development staff as well, who is doing some of more advanced integration, new functionalities for the plugin. So really recommend you reach out to the support realm there. We also have a mailing list available as well that we would request you sign up to if you wanted to get advanced information about the plugin and new information as we do new releases. And some of you have already gotten those reminders and responses from the solution. Another quick question, do you work with advisors' websites? I'm not sure which web platform they're built on, but they're designed to collect data for compliance reasons. It's a very good question. So, thank you, Patrice. In this case, what we're seeing with advisors is if you're becoming a DPO for other organizations, which is a very, very busy and good business model, I think, those DPOs should have access to this request infrastructure. So if you're an outsourced DPO for a widget company in London, England, you as a DPO must have access to this plugin infrastructure on that widget's website property. You will have to do the queries. You will also have to do remediations, right? And also do some high-level reporting on the infrastructure that's in place in that widget company. So what I'd recommend for the DPOs is to start saying, here's the tools I need in order to provide that service to you. This would be one of them for sure. In our other security practice right now with ClassiDocs, we have the same scenario where some DPOs are mandating a data discovery, e-discovery capability that we provide that must be resonant within the customers that we provide service for. So again, you're providing a service, you need tools. This would be one of the tools that you would have to mandate as part of your engagement, essentially, to be able to provide that information for them. Okay. So when we go back to GDPR in general, this drives a lot of requirements around, as you can see, discovery, reporting, self-service, and the ability to manage, not just that person's PII, but also to give you a really good understanding of what PII you actually even have on these users. We've found the same capabilities and same requirements are really required for the rest of the business. So I'm going to spend 2 minutes on ClassiDocs here and walk through what we've done with the same idea as the WordPress plugin, where we've said when a DSAR comes into a business and they say, I want to know what you have about me and how you're using that information, we're able to say, hey, we found you in, your information in 38 files on 12 laptops and 1 server. And we're able to give you that information right now, and then we can remediate that type of activity. So the same idea here. When you look at what we do for ClassiDocs, we are able to scan all your laptops, all your servers, all your cloud drives, all your databases, everything from QuickBooks to Salesforce to MailChimp to anything else that is non-WordPress in this case, and search for that information, in this case, probably, like I said, an email, and then able to do reporting on it. So what you're seeing here is the same kind of idea. We're entering a search query. In this case, it's an email address. And then I want to know where we have that information within the business. And what you're seeing here in a few seconds is a full report of all the information that we have found from that email address across the infrastructure. And you've seen it in this case, we're finding it in an Excel spreadsheet. We found that Excel spreadsheet in a couple zip files, and we're seeing it in a whole bunch of different folders and environmental stuff like servers and workstations as well. So in this case, not too bad. I think 32 total entries, right? Not bad. I can export that. I can do what I want. Just like the WordPress plugin, I can pull up this information and have the information displayed and managed from there. Okay. I can send that to the end user. I can do what I want in that context. What we've also done with ClassiDocs as well is extended it, like I said, to these what we call structured data stores. So in this case, we're also scanning mailboxes, Gmail, Office 365, even Lotus Notes, and also structured data stores. So SQL Server, MySQL, Hadoop, all these other big database vendors, Oracle, we could scan all of them and pull up the information as well. So what you're seeing here now, today with the full solution, is you've got the ability to, let me find the search here, find all results within WordPress, okay, and this is orders, comments, posts, user IDs, almost anything within WordPress. And then also now have the ability to look within ClassiDocs and do the same kind of query. Today, as of this minute, the systems are different. We have ClassiDocs and we have my friend WordPress here. In the very near future, both solutions will be integrated. So you'll have an option where ClassiDocs will also search WordPress and show the results in your DSAR request, e-discovery query panel here. Or in WordPress itself, it will display the ClassiDocs results. You'll have a choice. So what we're saying is in the future, you're going to be able to have WordPress as a corporate website, which almost everyone in the world has. You'll be able to add the WordPress GDPR framework to your site in a few clicks, we can help you with that. You can do it on your own. You can try it first and then call us. Totally up to you. But then after that, you're going to link it directly to ClassiDocs as well. And ClassiDocs gives you that capability to search everything on your network, everything in your cloud drives, and search all of your SaaS-based products you might be using, like MailChimp and Salesforce and these kinds of things. So the idea is, remember I said right in the beginning that your DSAR request for GDPR must be as complete and accurate as possible. And I said that means that more than just taking a look through a couple files or doing a quick search in WordPress. It means you must look everywhere, and you must look continuously, and you must look ongoing for this information. We're going to help you get there with these both these products together. It's a really exciting time for us to bring this solution to bear to the market. We find that WordPress, of course, is widely used. It has big ramifications on the GDPR side. Whether you're not even doing anything much on your corporate site, if you're not taking orders, but you are tracking analytics, everyone's got Google Analytics running on their site, if you've got SlimStat running, any of that sort of information means you're tracking PII potential information. You must be able to correlate that and report that to users. Of course, in your own environment today, you've got computers and servers and Dropbox and all these sort of things in use today. Any of that information stored there must be reported on as well. So GDPR, HIPAA, and other types of privacy legislations are coming, right? We're already here. They're pretty hard to comply with, especially if you don't think of privacy first, and they're not going away. So we're trying to develop solutions that are easy, simple to use, have the ability to very quickly deploy within your infrastructure. ClassiDocs, for example, can be as quick as a few hours generally, and also have a low cost of ownership, which is really important to everyone. More important to us, though, in everything we design, and you're seeing that in the solutions, is that we really have a focus on quick time to value, right? You don't want to be waiting 3 months for a deployment of a piece of technology so you can do a DSAR when you've already got DSARs waiting. You want something that's going to be as quick as possible, start delivering results as soon as possible. WordPress side, you saw that a few minutes, it's running, you're able to start querying and reporting immediately. ClassiDocs, a few hours, and you're starting to automatically deliver results to your management, the DPA, if they've called you, or even your DPO that has a request that must be facilitated. Okay, so I covered support, we've covered the ClassiDocs infrastructure, we've covered end user doing their own DSAR requests and doing full management of it. We've also covered the full setup wizard and how each component of the solution is managed, including all the options available to you and how do we manage the framework ongoing. And then also we've covered, of course, the ability to tailor and modify all of the content. I really recommend you look at the newest version if you can. We always do, a pretty focused job on making sure we keep it up to date. You'll see we're on with the latest WordPress now already today, and we're looking to do bi-weekly probably releases of the framework. I'll talk about the backlog a little bit with the product. What we're doing with the framework is, like I said, this past release was mostly bug fixes and getting caught up. If I look at the backlog and the next sprint for this plugin, about half of it is support type related activities. We have a few bugs. We've got another JavaScript to integrate with or something like that. And then we have some new features coming on from there. Many of the new features have been, asking for multilingual support, a couple different responses to end user queries, and also now some of the integration into tools like ClassiDocs. So you'll be seeing some initial integrations to these distributed platforms coming in the next few weeks, the next month or two. What we recommend, if you wanted to see it a little bit earlier, We love beta customers, and we love having feedback of end users as well, specifically. So if you wanted to see ClassiDocs and the GDPR framework and you have a business need for it, please drop a note into our support system. We'll get back to you as soon as possible. We'll walk through some explicit demo cases with you, and we'll try and design it with you ongoing. We're very big fans of, end users tell us what they want to buy. So we're happy to build what you want to buy, and we want your coordination helping us to do that properly. So please, if you want to see something specific, drop a note into support. And again, if you want to see some of the advanced integration and having use for it, please do that as well. I think everyone, that covers generally the presentation at a high level. I think we've done a good job. We've kept on time. And I want to thank everyone for joining on our first webinar today. Really good turnout. I'm really happy with that. And looking forward to the next one. You can probably see us doing this within the next month again for the WordPress GDPR Framework plugin. In addition to the bug fixes we'll go through and some of the advanced new functionality we've done, I am sure we will have some new announcements as well for the product line that would be very interesting to everyone involved. Thank you, everyone, very much. And we will be sending out the recording. And hopefully, if we can get through the Q&A that was there, we can answer some of those questions. We'll be putting up an FAQ on the website. Thank you very much. Have a great day and evening.